my tornado film, I'd been thinking before that, made this film called Chase It from the South. Before I made it, I was always kind of wrestling with myself. I'm like, what is the tension between passion and responsibility? Like, I'm really passionate about my film career, but then I want to be like, eventually one day hope to be a father and want to be responsible that way. And it's like, so I'm like, what decisions can I make right now? Like, how do you wrestle between passion and responsibility? Like, both, if you're over responsible, perhaps you never get to live the dream that you had, or if you're too passionate, you also another dream or responsibility of family.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Creative Gap podcast. We are in Brooklyn, New York today. Another change of scenery. Today we have a really special guest. Means a lot to me that he came out today. I've been following him and his work for maybe 3 years or so now. And in the beginning of my filmmaking journey, he inspired me a lot because I thought a lot of his advice and his work was very practical and it made sense to me. So I related a lot to his YouTube channel and what he was teaching, especially in the documentary world. And since then, he's done a lot of commercial work. He's done some amazing documentaries. And he recently just launched a new business and educational course called Art of Documentary. And I'm very excited to introduce Mark Bone.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to start, just give a little background of who you are, where you came from, and how you got here.
Yeah, I got on a plane in Air Canada today.
Yeah.
I first time ever, I forgot my passport, but luckily I live in the part of the city, so I'm like 15 minutes from the airport. But maybe going back a little bit further, no, I got into filmmaking. I was in an era when it was like when you meet someone who is like a filmmaker, you were really blown away because now it's very common for people to be content creators. Everyone has a camera. But back when I was in high school, we did Comtech, communications technology. I shot a film and I just ended up being the director, the DP, the editor. Like, my friends were just kind of there and I loved it. But I loved it so much, it felt like a drug that I was like, that could never be my actual job. You know what I mean? So, when I left high school, I just went and did humanitarian work because I was like, I'm not sure what I want to do. There's a lot of things I like. Why don't I just try helping people for a year? And I'm sure I'm making it sound really altruistic. It was exciting. I got to travel, but I was stationed in Egypt during the Darfur War. There was a civil war in Sudan, and so all these refugees were fleeing. And I was working with a group of doctors, and I had no medical training, so my job was they just said hey, can you just talk to these refugees? They need to get their stories out because when they come see us, we need to be able to focus right away on what they need medically, because there were so many of them. So I was just in this Coptic church in the desert talking with these people all day, and their journeys were extraordinary. They had left businesses, seen family members pass away, traveled through the desert, left everything, but still had the most courageous and encouraging attitudes. And I came back with these stories on my heart and mind and found that I really enjoyed just talking with people, getting to know who they were, and realizing that, to me, I'm like, these are real superheroes. These are people who've, I just could not remember back then. I heard about Spider-Man cost $500 million back then.
Yeah.
Which with inflation now, that's $750 million. And it's I was just Spider-Man's not real. I don't really care about his story.
A disconnect?
Yeah. I was just but then I'm but these people were real. And it was actually, so I came back and I worked construction for a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was editing all the videos for the aid organization, but one of those things that I've realized often in life, it's it can be too good to be true. It's okay. We're oh, this, I like this so much, I shouldn't do it. But I'm it's actually really important that your passion and your schedule aligns. That's where I think you have creative fulfillment. And it's not that you just need to squelch everything you're not passionate about. There's things in life you got to do. You got to change a diaper. You got to go to the gym. There's things that there's effort that you have to put in, part of your success. So you can't just follow good feelings. But when you are passionate, and passionate for me is when you're ready to skip a meal to do that thing. I would just sit and work all day on edits and all that. But it was actually my dad, lucky enough for me, who saw me editing one day in between construction shifts, and he was I think you're a filmmaker.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
I feel like that's rare.
Yeah, it was. And I was I'm the youngest. A lot of people thought I might follow in his footsteps. He's a church pastor. And I was kind of I don't know, maybe I'll go and do missions or, be a counselor or something like that. I was always really inspired by how much he cared for people. Him and my mom, like that would do like family counseling, and we're pastors together. And so I was like, maybe I'll do that. But having him like be like, no, you're like a filmmaker. It's like I really felt empowered to be
Wow.
like, yeah, I'm gonna go do that. So it was just like, but then I think for another few months I was like wrestling with it, and then just one day I woke up and just felt that like little voice in my head, and I was like, I gotta apply to film school. And so
And you went to film school?
yeah. So yeah,
Where'd
I
you
went
go?
to Sheridan College in Canada, which at the time had this program called Media Arts. And what's so cool with Media Arts is this syncing? This is syncing. Let me move this back up. Does that sound
Tighten
right?
it, yeah, tighten it as much as you can.
Yeah, there we go.
I guess a lot of people find value in film school for like the technical stuff. A lot of people
Yeah.
find value in film school for the connections. What was it for you?
Um, I think two things. One, yeah, you learn how to collaborate. What I was really frustrated about film school is I came out of it, and this is why we created Art of Documentaries. I didn't know what a good story was still. Like I had a lot of technical abilities, like it really empowered me. But I think the thing that film school taught me, and some really great teachers there did, which they seem to be rare now, is they really kicked my butt. Like I remember being afraid to bring my rough cuts to them because they would tear into them. And I think that is so important. Feedback is so important. I've been around people and seen people screen their films, and when people ask you what you think, if you're asking people what you think about your work, it's not helpful for anyone. It's mean. It's kind of cruel to the person you're saying it to, because to say just like, what do you think? You're really just asking them to say like, it's awesome. Like
Right.
you need to ask really specific feedback. And I think it's okay to be nervous about showing your work. It means you care. And it also means that you're ready to, you probably need improvement, and that's good. So I think the main thing I learned about film school was I was like, it helped me because I was so afraid of a couple of our teachers' feedback. They would take us into a theater, and they would always show our work on
Oh, wow.
on like a 45-foot screen. And then his name was Vladimir Kabelek. He was awesome, and he would come up, and my first project, we showed it, and he was like, he just said, "Can I swear in the podcast?"
Yeah.
He was like, "This is shit." Like he just like straight in front of the class. He was just like, he's like, "This is terrible. Like if I had hired you, I would. If you were working for me, I would fire you." Like, and that was in front of the class. I remember but that was actually really, really helpful because it helped me when I would go to my edits. Then I would look at them as if he was in the room. And I think it's really like, and I've learned this with my films over the years, just having extra people in the room, when you do a playback, you start seeing your film differently.
Yeah.
Even like when we made my first feature film that I got to direct, it's called Okay, and now it's called the ASD Band Film. Me and Eva, when we were in LA working on it, we would invite her roommates into screen, just like, hey, even just be on your laptop, or if you can watch it, that would be better. But just knowing that they were like looking at when we would do like rough cut reviews, having those extra people present makes you insecure about the work. And that's not that it's supposed to make you feel not confident, but when I say insecure,
It make you more objective?
makes you more aware of how is someone perceiving this.
I see.
Yeah, you stop falling in love with the fact that you shot it or the
Right.
edits you did, and you start thinking, how is this being perceived? Is this story coming through? Like, and so it's great to love your work, and it's great to have like an Instagram grid that you're proud of. But I think it's really important to understand, if you want to like be a good storyteller, is how are people perceiving this story? And it's not that you have to just tailor everything to the way sometimes people are just bad watchers, or like it's okay that people have different interpretations. But if you can't ask someone like, say like, what did my main character want? Or can you summarize the story in 2 sentences? Like if they're like, well, I think it was, I'm not, it's like, you might have a big problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what film school helped me with, is that it gave me great feedback. And I think that is the biggest issue right now I'm seeing in the YouTube and in the filmmaking space, is we all go on, we see a friend's work, we want to encourage them, we double tap like, we put like the 100 emoji,
The fire flames.
the fire flames.
Yeah.
You're in the YouTube comments. It's like, there's very rarely negative comments. Oh, well, this is awesome. And so what we start doing is we start just pursuing the content that we know gets the most emojis or the most likes. And that's often like beautiful, well-lit shots, which is so important to storytelling. But what I'm noticing these days is that, and that's why like AOD came out of like Art of Documentary or Academy, as I was like, man, I know the journey I went on to get into storytelling. And I'm not saying that I'm this expert storyteller, but one of the things I know I'm good at is taking complex problems and simplifying them. And it was like, being able just to simplify a story is like, someone wants something, and we're going to follow that, But all that to say is I'm really noticing that like storytelling is the biggest issue right now. And people are we get our we do this thing called the 1 day doc competition in AOD, and we just had 130 submitted last night. Like the deadline was last night. So 130 new films, probably 100 of those are people who've never made a doc film before. It's so exciting. You get 1 day to shoot your film and then like a month to edit it. And
Oh, wow.
so our community is submitting some really amazing stuff. Some of the films that got picked up by like BBC in the past and all this. It's like incredible work. But the thing I notice now is the cinematography is insane.
Yeah.
Everyone's cinematography is good. Everyone is good. Like what I look at it, I'm like, I gotta set my game up. But storytelling is suffering, and storytelling is what you remember. You know, we often remember what we feel, but there's such a glut of incredible images right now. It's like I think the way you separate yourself is good storytelling, and one of the ways to be a good storyteller is just getting good feedback. So yeah, long story short,
Yeah.
feedback.
Definitely. And when you came out of school and you're starting to pursue this career, what did you notice about yourself that was like maybe the biggest hurdle for you to overcome to be able to start telling a good story? Like
Yeah.
what held you back a little bit? What didn't you know that
Well,
you know now?
what I always thought is that if I can make, if I look like a filmmaker, and if I can like shoot a couple of things that look cool enough, someone's going to come to me and be like, I see you. I want you to make this, you know, like I was just waiting and waiting and I was then started commercial directing. Like I'd shot some stuff for 8 organizations and got a reel, and then got onto a director's roster and just started shooting commercials. And it was fun. Some of it was like Nike and all that. But none of the projects, I remember I did this project with DeMar DeRozan for Nike, and like my girlfriend at the time was like, whoa, like you like, isn't this is the best thing ever? And she was like, you seem disappointed. And I was like, yeah, like this isn't like, I was like, this is not what I want. Like, it's cool. Like he's playing basketball, but
It didn't mean anything.
it didn't mean, because it wasn't like a story that I really cared. It wasn't like birthed out of my mind. And I was waiting. This is like me doing YouTube in Toronto.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
perfect. No,
Okay.
it's you're in the
It
city.
feels natural.
It feels
Yeah, it's
natural.
great. I
No,
love
we're in the
it.
wild. All
Yeah.
podcasts are so dead silent. It's nice to have
Some liveliness.
diegetic background noise. This is good.
But honestly, to go into your point a little bit, I do a ton of commercial work.
Yeah.
And, I love it. There's positives and negatives. But I recently did something last year in Kenya. It was for a nonprofit organization. And the goal was to be able to raise enough or create a film and raise enough money for them to be able to buy their own land, to be able to house the boys that they're, hosting. And we created the film last year. And about a month or 2 ago, the owner of the nonprofit texted me and said, with the help of your film, we just placed a deposit on 10 acres of land.
Come on, man.
And that was like
Yeah.
the best feeling in the
Yeah.
world. It made
Yeah.
everything worth it. And it truly is unlike anything else. When you could truly make a difference, it's amazing.
Yeah, no, when you can see that something you've made digitally that was on your hard drive and then projected on a screen reaches back and has impact in the physical world, and has, like, to use like some hyperbole, but like life-changing impact. Like you never know what that orphanage or that building that you guys built will have on some of those boys' lives. And I can remember the first time that happened. I did a little similar, did a video for a friend in Haiti, and I remember a family came to me afterwards and were like, that video, we showed it to our parents, and we finally got their support for us to adopt a child. Because and they were like, thank you, like this was like a really galvanizing moment. Our parents watched the film and they cried, and they're like, we can't wait for you guys. We really think, yeah, this is important, you adopt. And I remember being like, just because you had your head down, you just never really thought your work could do anything.
Yeah.
And then it was like, that hit me. I was like, oh, like this can have real world impact. And so that has always been kind of an underlying thing in my films. I want to know what problems is solving in someone else's life, like what, and that's what guides me in my films. And so I kind of follow that. Like, I don't want to make a film that doesn't have a deeper question that at least someone can ask themselves that is exploring that. And so it's been a great kind of principle. So I just kind of follow that,
Right.
because again, that's a passion. I want to help people. I think that's why like AOD kind of happened, was I wanted to see people tell better stories. I saw all the stress I had for so many years of being like, what is a good story? Or to circle back to the other question, I finally realized, oh, it's in my hands to shoot this films that I want. Like I kept waiting in the commercial world for that one story that I thought would make me feel complete. But it was like, eventually I didn't have work for 6 months because I got onto a bigger director's roster, and then I was the small fish in a big
Right,
pond, and
right.
I wasn't getting hired. And they were like, why don't you try to submit something to, the Cannes Young Directors Awards? And so that's when I made the film Rescate. And
Yep. Beautiful.
that was like, I can remember being on set, and funny enough, Matty was there too. And he was shooting with me, and I was just there, and I was like, whoa, no one's on set. It's just us.
Yeah.
I funded this, or with the help of actually a really cool family here in New York, actually, Frankie Rodriguez and Jenny. They put some money towards the project. But it was a moment where I was like, oh, I've been waiting for someone to tell me I could do this. But I have I have the power. I might not always have the money, but I can get creative, and certainly did. And so many people came onto it and like were able to like really help me make, I made that film for like 12 grand, and it's like it yeah,
Which is nothing.
Nothing, which
Yeah.
is nothing. I know people are like, oh, that seems like a lot. It's like, no,
It's not.
once you start flying, I flew a translator down. I flew Mati
It
down for a couple
goes
days. Yeah.
quick.
Yeah, exactly. We had like, but there was amazing people. There was like a pastor in the town who just let me like crash in their guest bedroom. And it was, and then crazy enough, I got the, Clinton Humuth came on to color that, and he had just like worked on like Mad Max and all
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah. And so they did that for like next to nothing. Like, yeah. But so you get creative, but I was like, I remember that was really empowering. I was like, oh yeah, I'm waiting for people to tell me what to do. And I'm waiting for someone to say like, I think I was waiting for that moment again, like I had with my dad, where my dad's like, you're a filmmaker. But it was like, I'm like, you can't just wait for people to tell you. It's helpful. I think it's important for all of us. If you recognize something in someone else's life, like call it out. Like words have power. Like words absolutely have power. So I think it's really important to recognize that in others, but also you can recognize it in yourself. And I wrote that in my journal after film school. I said, like, I'm a documentary filmmaker who will make films that will help people.
I love that.
And I kept coming back to that. And I remember it wasn't until 2017 that I shot Rescate. So like 7 years, I didn't feel like I was serving that purpose. But I can't be hard. All that led me up to that moment.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of my films wouldn't have done as well as they did had I not had that 7 years of experience. So you can't ever disparage the journey. But I think it's just so important not to feel like the world has to tell you who you want to be, you can determine that.
Right. And when I did the film in Kenya, and I also did one in Uganda 2 years prior to that, I came home with like a new feeling of like a new perspective on my own life, a new perspective of how I perceive things, and like what I thought would be, or what I thought were issues in my life would ended up not being issues. That
Yeah.
like, I just gained a whole new perspective on life, and I think documentaries can do that.
Yeah.
How have you grown personally throughout the films that you've made? Like, how have you grown as a person?
I think one gift that documentary has given me is I enjoy talking. And I think it's because I don't really think before I speak. So I'm like enjoying this with you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, but like, what are we going to, I don't, I'm like, what's he going to say next? So I've often been a talker, but documentary has forced me to be a listener, because you actually don't want the director's voice in the film, even really practically.
Right.
And so it's allowed me to practice the art of listening, which I think is one of the most important. It's like, I know that's why we were talking beforehand. That's why this podcast was birthed. Like, because like listening, it equips you with so much knowledge. You get to hear what people have been through, and learning from people a few years ahead of you, or even in the past. It's like age doesn't always have to be the determining factor of wisdom. But I think that's one of the best gifts that documentary has given me is a passion to listen, and to recognize that every person you meet knows something that you don't. And so it's really easy to just write people off right away, or be like, you're I know who you are, but they'll know something, even if you don't necessarily think they're necessarily wise. They've had life experience, or you can learn about why does someone actually think this way.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. I love documentary, because I get to go meet people who, some people might even think like your opinion it should be hidden, but I want to know, like, how did you get there? That's why I really, really appreciate Lex Friedman. This is what he's doing. And people criticize him for interviewing. He just did a podcast a few months ago with Bibi Netanyahu. And it's like, but Lex was desperately trying to understand like
His perspective.
and when we say that, even people are like, oh, why are you trying to understand their perspective? It's like, we need to understand how people got there.
Yeah.
If we're gonna like meet in the middle, we have to understand like where did XYZ, like how did these steps occur, you know? Because perhaps you can see someone going down that path earlier, or then you can be like, oh, that's why they think that way. So I can talk this way to them. So yeah, documentary's given me a passion to want to understand people around me more and to recognize too that I probably don't understand them. Like I have a lot of assumptions, a lot of assumptions. So yeah, I think it's helped me recognize like how often I can be judgmental, and then often too that like the next steps for me to learn is probably not to talk. It's probably to listen.
Yeah, listening is huge, and
It takes energy, right?
it's probably the hardest thing that you have to like forcefully try to do
Yeah.
is not talk, because sometimes you're in like a group of friends, you want to be the person that says the wise thing.
Yeah, right.
But I've started to come. I'm a pretty shy person naturally.
Yeah.
And I've found so much value in honestly just not speaking at all as much as possible. It's just you really do gain a whole different perspective when you just listen instead of you blurbing out everything.
Yeah.
Um,
It can build trust with people when you're not always
yes,
talking.
I agree.
Because if you are the one who's always dominating the conversation, it can lead people, A, they don't feel heard. And B, it's like, why do you crave for your opinion to always be, you know, front and center?
I feel like it's almost like a insecurity too. Sometimes is
It
when
can
you
be.
speak too much, maybe you're actually a little insecure. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. When you talk about these people that you're learning about their perspective, their story, what does it look like for you to find a person to document? Like, what does that process look like, and where do you draw the line of like, oh, there is a story here? Because there's so many people out there that you can document and create a documentary,
Totally.
but how do you find what is truly the next story you want to tell or the next person?
This is a great question. I just did a YouTube video about this. So we'll just send people there. I'm kidding, but
YouTube.com/Markbone.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. No, but yeah, I did do a video about this, but this is a question that I get a lot, and I'm in this process right now. I'm trying to find the next film and finishing a couple right now, and there's a few things. I think the best place to start is what has been on your mind recently, because again, there's documentary stories all around you, but if you don't know what you're looking for, you can miss them. So I try to start with what are the ideas that I'm thinking about recently. And it's like for my tornado film, I've been thinking before that, you know, made this film called Chase It from the South. Before I made it, I was always kind of wrestling with myself. I'm like, what is the tension between passion and responsibility? Like I'm really passionate about my film career, but then I want to be like, eventually one day hope to be a father and want to be responsible that way. And it's like, so I'm like, what decisions can I make right now? Like, how do you wrestle between passion and responsibility? Like both, you know, if you're over responsible, perhaps you never get to live the dream that you had. Or if you're too passionate, you also another dream or responsibility of family. So having that first, like, it's really good to journal some ideas, but then really practically, you know, I find my characters through conversation, through reaching out to journalists. Journalists, they constantly turning over stories, and they can't stay with a story that long unless it's like a long form article. They have to do like weekly, daily. And so I'll reach out to journalists sometimes and be like, hey, is there stories that you haven't been able to explore further? Like, you know, you build a relationship and sometimes you can bring them on as producers. Or I've even reached out to some characters who I've seen an article, I've seen a photojournalist photo, and I've seen someone's name, and I'll reach out to that person. Because I'm like, oh, you know, they seem to be caught in some sort of existential crisis. And so that's what leads me to the next thing is practically, yeah, you can reach out to journalists, but I think just boots on the ground, being around people is important. But then the way I recognize a character is someone has a clear desire and is in the midst of that journey towards that desire. So when I was introduced, my friends said, hey, you know, there's these two tornado hunters, Ricky Forbes and Chris Chittick. Do you want to meet with them? And I was like, sure. I wasn't like thinking this could be the next doc. I was like, it might not be. But when I started talking with them and kind of poking around and like, you know, not just being like, what do you think about tornado hunting? What do you want to do? You know, they wanted to pursue the coolest tornadoes. And I'm like, that's cool. That would be a physical journey in a film. We could watch them. But then really I was like, what do they want?
Right.
And they want to be able to provide for their families. But they now have to do it in a safe way. And that's where the title Chase It from the South comes, because tornadoes only ever move north. And so they have to chase it from the south now, because they used to just park in front of the tornado, let it come at them. And now they're like, they've made a pact with their wives that like they're going to be safer. So now they're literally chasing the tornadoes from the south, and it's really challenging. So to me, I'm like, there's a story. They want something. They want to find tornadoes, but what do they want to do? They want to provide for their family. So you get an emotional and a physical conflict in the film. So just simply put, if you can find someone who is passionate about a goal, and that goal can be, I want to finish this race. I want to build a house just like my dad did. He passed away or whatever, and I want to build a house because he built a house for my family. If that goal can meet a need in their life, then that is a very interesting character. And so that's what you want to find. And then you need to make sure the person's passionate, they're available, they're articulate to an extent.
Right. That's also important.
It is. Yeah. We've had films where people, haven't had the context in their life to be able to describe their emotions. And it's not that you can't make a film about them, but we just, helped produce a film that was shot all by AOD people. And one of our directors, Tad Munnings, called Long Run Home, and that main character had a difficult time articulating his emotions. So we really had to get creative and visually how we showed that. But yeah, if they can be articulate, available, and they want something, that's just like it. I can't stress that enough. Like storytelling, like life is built around desire. Everything, conflicts are built around desire. We want this land, you want this, our film careers. I desire to be recognized, or I desire to make this film. Desire is at the core of all of us. That's what's driving our life stories. And so if you can recognize people's desires, but then also see that there's layers to that, like I just ran a half marathon, and Eric Flober came down to pace me. What a legend. My desire was to run 90 minutes. But the emotional desire behind that is I'm 36 and I wanted to beat my time when I was 18, half my age. I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm still like, healthy and want to have a long health span. And so that was the emotional. And if someone interviewed me, I'm sure you could dig down and see that there was more attached to that, like with my life circumstances or what I want in the future. I was mentioning wanting to be a dad one day. It's like, you're trying, there's more to that. So then that's a story. So then that race holds more meaning.
Yes.
But a lot of people just shave off the top.
Surface.
It's like, oh, let's see if you can complete the race, and I'm going to put exciting music underneath this and montage. And it's like, it's just a reel at that point.
It's like asking the question, why?
Yes.
Like deeper and deeper. And like every time they answer, like, why? Why? What about this? What about that? And I think that's when you start peeling back the layers of the onion. You really find like at the core what they're doing.
Yeah. So why do you want to, you're talking about this, why do you do these podcasts? What's the desire for you? What will this fulfill for you?
Because I want to be the best husband and father that I could be. Yeah. That's why I do this, to be honest.
And how will this help you achieve that?
Because I talk to people that are in the same industry as me, that is an industry that's not really conducive to being a father or a husband as much as a 9-to-5 job, for example. I travel a lot for work. I'm gone for 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. And I get booked on jobs, and I don't know if I'm going to get booked again. So a lot of the times I have to say yes to jobs a lot, because maybe I'm not in the position yet to say no as often as I'd like to. And I know that because I've been with my fiance for 10 years, she's been with me for every part of my journey as much as I've been with her. She's seen where I've started, where I've gone, and where I am now.
Yeah.
And we've worked through all these things together so far.
Yeah.
How I've traveled, because last October, I think I was home 6 months, 6 days, 7 days out of the whole month.
Wow.
And we just moved into a new house that month. So with that and me gone, it's really tough for her.
Yeah, of course.
That is the reason why I do this, is to be able to prepare myself that when I get married in 7 months from now, and when I have a kid, who knows when, I will be in a place where I have the knowledge and wisdom from other people to hopefully navigate my life better.
Yeah. So are you're hoping that this will provide wisdom into blind spots that you have? Or
things that I just don't know about, because I'm young. I only know so much. And I think I like to say that I'm humble enough to know that I don't know everything yet. And I really don't. I don't know
anyone who says
anything.
They do.
I don't know anything.
It's intellectual suicide.
Exactly. And I just try to find different little things that people say about what they do in their life that I might be like, oh, that's interesting. I've never done that before. How they communicate with their significant other, or how they have gotten to the place to say no to jobs and want to stay home.
Yeah.
So there's little things that I'm building and building up. So I'll feel comfortable in a place because I don't want to miss my kids, soccer games.
Yeah.
They're
No, that is life.
that to me, I think being a father is what I'm meant to do in my life. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's a huge part of what I want to be. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be a father.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you know your dad growing up?
I did.
Yeah.
I have an interesting relationship with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
From the time I was like born to about 4 or 5 years old, he traveled all the time. He owned a women's dress. He designed women dresses and
Okay.
gowns,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and he would travel to Asia 6, 7 months out of the year. He'd work in New York all the time. So he wasn't around very much when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then 9/11 happened
Wow.
and his business got shut down.
Yeah.
From there, he was home. He had to find a new career path,
Mm-hmm.
and he ended up becoming my soccer coach.
Oh, cool.
So by the time I was maybe 6 to 14, I only kind of knew him as my soccer coach then. Not really like, of course I knew him as my dad, and
Yeah.
he always taught me lessons, but everything we did was revolved around soccer. And then I found a new team, and I kind of separated from him as a coach,
Yeah.
and I moved on. And then I think it was when I started to pursue music. He was a musician as well growing up, so he was supporting me musically as an artist.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of value in that, similar to your dad
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Oh, you're a filmmaker."
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, I'm supporting you in this music endeavor because I know how hard it could be."
Mm-hmm.
And as I gotten older, um, I've started to. I got past the phase of like, "Oh, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I know everything," type of thing. When your
Yeah.
parents want
Yeah.
to give you advice, and I've realized that my dad, he's a what's it, reborn Christian,
Yeah. Born again.
born again
Yeah.
Christian,
Yeah.
and he actually preaches now
No way.
as well.
So we're
So
both PKs, pastors' kids.
right.
That's funny.
His whole life changed, and the way he holds himself has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that he has gone through so much that I can truly learn so much from him. And I've gotten to the point with him that I'm open about everything
Cool.
with him. And he is, every time I have an issue, I have a problem, I have a question, he's the first person I call,
Really?
no matter what.
So it sounds like there's been an evolution in your guys' relationship.
100%. And I love it, to be honest.
Wow.
My parents are divorced. He
Yep.
found a new wife,
Yep.
my stepmom. And he has a newfound happiness that I also admire as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the evolution between him and I is beautiful. And I admire him and I look up to him as a father. And I think part of the reason why I want to be a dad is because of his journey in not saying that like he's stuck in one place. He evolved just as much as a man as he did a father to me.
And so you've seen that evolution in him, but it sounds like earlier years there was a gap. Is part of this podcast like, do you have a fear that you're like, I want to get ahead of my evolution? You know what I mean?
Kind
like,
of,
yeah, like
yeah.
I want my growth to be happening now. Yeah.
That's why I work so hard. That's why I'm building so many things, the podcast, YouTube, DP work, I'm trying to build and work so much that when I do get to that place, when I have a kid, hopefully I'll be in a position to be more choosy or more willing to say no to things.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
I
for
feel
me.
you. I feel you. I know that. Like, that's where I'm like, I would have loved to have been a dad when I was younger, but I'm like, as I work for financial stability, I'll be able to focus on that, and that won't be, the stress. But I think you're focusing on your character right now. It's like, you can always focus on your finances and that's all really, really important, but your kids will remember you most for your character, right? Like, I remember the moments, like things that stick out in my mind is like, it's like, I remember once I borrowed, it was back when like your family had one cell phone, I'm really showing my age. And I borrowed it. It was when I was in that humanitarian school, and I was like making calls, and some people called me from Barbados or something like that, and it like came back, and like there was like a $275 like long distance bill on it. And like my parents were on like one salary, like my dad had stepped down from the church and was like traveling, like life coach, pastor. So their salary was tiny. And I know how much that money would mean to them. Yeah. But I remember my dad just saying like, Mark, I remember just like calling him like nervous, not because I was afraid of him, but like being like, I know how much that money, like $275 back then. And he was just like, it's all right, Mark. And I remember just like, I think I cried after I hung up the phone because I was like, just so struck by that by the care and the grace that he provided. And it's like, you remember those moments, right? Like, I don't remember, like, I would think I remember getting my first phone or whatever from them, but
It
yeah,
doesn't
like
hold the same
it doesn't,
significance.
no, provision can be like emotional, it can be like, yeah, your provision for the people around you can be like, are you emotionally stable? You know what I mean? Like, not that you have to hide your emotions, but like that can be the rock they lean in on. But I mean, the other things do help, like money
Right.
and thinking ahead of those things certainly can provide opportunity. But I heard someone saying recently, they're like, they were talking about like staying within your budget for Christmas gifts. And then they had someone asking them, they're like, well, like, what if my kids are disappointed? He's like, well, you get an opportunity to help teach your kids how to be disappointed. It's like,
That's
that hit me. I was like, whoa, like,
Yeah, I never thought about that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
interesting.
what a great life lesson.
Yeah.
Life is full of disappointment. Like I left my journal. I love journaling. I left it on the airplane today. I don't know if I'll ever see it again. And I had to like work through disappointment on the.
Somebody's going to have some great memos.
I know. Someone's like, the problem. The back of that book has all my doc ideas. So someone's either gonna like, it's fine. I have to put my phone number in it. But it's because I was sitting beside one of the actors from the John Wick movie, and I was like
Hey
looking
there.
at him, yeah. And then like I think I got all nervous when we stand up. I was like, "Are we gonna make eye contact? This is gonna be." But then and then I like left my journal. So lesson learned: don't get starstruck.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were talking about like, I guess the balance between being like the business side and the human side a little bit. Fortunately, my dad was also, because he owned the wedding or the women's gown and dress, he's also very entrepreneurial as well.
Yeah.
And he has helped shape me and how I perceive myself as well as like a business owner, entrepreneur. Even though I'm freelance, I think of myself as a business owner. And,
yeah, you have to. You have to.
And he always helps me find the balance between thinking too business minded versus like artistically and as a human being as well. And I think learning those lessons have been so valuable to me.
Yeah.
Because I really do, I do see the importance of every single thing, but just trying to navigate when one might be more important than the other is really like an invaluable skill, I think.
Yeah, I think so much of life is to do with balance. And I've tried to look at my creativity and my business side as like two wings of the same bird or same airplane. And it's like, if I'm focusing on one too much all the time, I'll be banking. And now like a plane needs to navigate, like you need to move around. But if you're just leaning on one, you're going to get into a tailspin.
Right.
And so if you're only focusing on the creative projects, there is opportunities. You see people who do that, but I would actually push back to say, like, if you're just full on artist, you won't actually accomplish everything you dreamed of. Like, I would just watch the Andy Warhol documentary, and like, the dude loved business. He was so business minded, and we look at him as like an avant-garde auteur, like not only film director but like painter, all of this. But the man loved business. Yeah. He really, really did, and so I think. Yeah, you need to hold both. And I remember I'm really grateful. It was like my dad in 2008, with the summer of film, like my first summer at film school, he was like, you need to go to this website and you need to register your name and you need to get a business number. And I remember being like, do I though? Like, I'm just like, I'm a video guy. Like when like, we was like, no, you're a business owner. And I think it's that is so important to recognize that, yeah, you're not just an artist, you are a business owner. I'm curious what your dad, having, worked, he's clearly like worked with like huge, if you're working overseas and with clothing, like I did a nonprofit at one point and we were like developing clothes in Bangladesh and all that would then help build water wells. So little understanding of the garment world, but he would have been working with like a lot of just complex business. Right. What have you learned about money from him?
I've learned that taxes are brutal.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I know. Our accountant just told us how much we owe. Yeah, and it was more than like my tax bill is like way more than like my salary was. Right. Like really, my career, I was like, you make more money, you pay more money.
Exactly. And I think I realized that one of the first year or two that I was in business, I didn't really understand taxes, and he started helping me understand like a tax account, having a bank account specific for taxes and putting a certain percentage into that account every time you get money in. So, whether you pay quarterly or you pay at the end of the year, you have a bank account specifically with an amount of money that is relative to your income and that percentage. Yeah. But he's also He's also helped me a lot about budgeting as well. And maybe it's more like a subconscious thing, but whenever I'm in a position, I'm like, oh, I want to buy something. I want to do this. Like, I don't know if it's, sometimes I'll run it by him and he's like, well, do you need it? Do you want it?
Yeah.
And if you want it, that's totally okay. But just understand that it's a want, not a need.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important too, because, a lot of people say you don't buy things that are wants. But I work really hard.
Yeah.
I want things that I want things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I
but
think it is. I think it is.
I think it's just recognizing the difference between the two, though.
Yeah. I think it's important if you want something, though, to be able to identify what you think it will give you emotionally and just know that that's waning. They say like anything you buy, it's always this. It's interesting. One trip around the sun, they say no one can hide who they truly are unless they're a sociopath, like after 1 year. I've heard really wealthy people say like any big purchase they've made, whether it's a house or a boat or whatever, after 1 year, the shiny newness wears off.
Yeah.
And we just have this incredible ability as humans to return back to like homeostasis, like our plumb line, our center, which is like our emotional swings. So things become normal really easy to us. But so it's like you recognize that like the things won't give you fulfillment, but if you're going to enjoy it, like that's not bad.
No,
Like,
it's not bad.
it's not bad. It's not bad. My dad has always told me that like the one thing he said was money is a tool. And that helped me like to actually, and I've heard different people say like, other metaphors around it, but seeing it as a tool is like, what is a tool? Like, well, a tool is something you take off the wall, you use it, it gets beat up, like you replace it, like it helps you build the things around you. But a tool just on the wall, like that you never take out of the toolbox or that, it's always like hidden, it's useless. It might as well not exist.
Exactly.
And so I've learned that it's good to spend my money. Like now, when I say that, I mean like good to spend it on the things that will help my business or help the people around me. Great book that I've read that's really helped me with money is called Happy Money
love that book.
by Ken Honda.
Yep, I've read it.
Yeah, it's so good, right? To just see
a quick book.
See your money as people. If your money was a person, if you open your wallet, like, that's all he starts with it, saying like, is your money smiling? But I've looked at it and like, if my money is a person, is it scared? Is it like hiding? Is it confident? Is it resourceful? Is it bitter? Like, is it joyful? And it's made me be a more generous person where I'm like, sometimes I'll like pay for dinner and you're like, oh, dude, like, oh, did I? And you're like, no, like I get to partner with this money and be really happy about this. And it's like, I don't want sour, selfish money in my life. Like I don't, you cut out friends who are toxic. It's like, is my money, if it had a personality, would it be toxic? Like toxic people sometimes don't talk, they're standoffish, they'll avoid. It's like, if that's how you're treating money, if you get your money and you just bury it in savings and like, not, it's like, it's not that saving is bad. Saving is really, really good. Save your money. But is it out of fear? Like, do you really want a fearful person in your life? Like, what are they telling you all the time? Like, that's not a voice you want. So I'm really grateful that I have a business partner who sees money very similar. Like and so we kind of have our hands open with our money. Like it comes, it goes, but like we also see it as a resource. And sometimes you need to stock your resource. You need a storehouse. Like you need to, the proverb of like the ant stores the, I'm going to butcher that, but like, the ant works in the, I'm butchering this. He puts away the stuff in a storehouse, I know what you're talking about. But someone
you're absolutely right.
So yeah, I think seeing your money is something that isn't just, scarce, Yeah.
What was when you started business, whether it was like when you started as a director, maybe it was YouTube or even the art of documentary, what was the hardest hurdle that you had to overcome as a business person? Like, what were some things that you had to learn and navigate?
I think it was something I'm learning right now, and I'm realizing it's something I have to overcome because I'm still doing this. Is the way I described a thing in our company just before I came here. I was talking with our team as I go, we should have bought the Maserati in the beginning when we were offered it, but instead we bought the Civic. And we've just been doing upgrades. We now have a Civic, I'm just using like a lower end vehicle
of course.
with all these upgrades that's cost us as much as the Maserati, but it still goes as fast as the Civic. And I'm like, sometimes I've learned in my business is like, if I want to be at a certain level, I need to to invest back into my business to that level. Like, I'm so grateful. Get people around you, give you good feedback. One of my best friends, Matt Dawn, he right before I came on this, he looked at something in our business and just said, "Hey," he's like, "I just got to say it because I know the quality of your work. I know art of documentary and like what it is." He goes, "This part of your business, it's dusty." He goes, "It doesn't reflect who you are." And I'm so glad I have friends. That was painful to hear. It's going to be an expensive solution, but man, we got to do it. And it's like, so we got to reinvest back there. It's going to be painful to spend that money, but we're going to, I know a year from now, we'll look at that and be like, thank God we did, because it's misrepresenting us right now. And so we've tried to just do it affordably. And there's times to do that. There is absolutely times to do that. And so I don't have a formula. I wish you can tell I'm in the midst of still learning this. Usually, like, I feel like I can distill things down into one sentence, but, I would say this: if you feel like you're going to be just like somewhat satisfied with the thing you're investing into, spend the extra money.
Right.
Like, your business deserves to feel, you deserve to love it. And I very rarely regretted spending money on quality. Like there's been a few even just personal items in my life, like car recently, or some like just things like luggage that I've like, oh, you know what? I know I'm going to be replacing this if I buy the mediocre product. And I'm like, then I'll just buy 2 of them, and I'll actually probably, if 2 camera bags that are mediocre are $200, why don't I just buy the one for $400, and then I'll have it. And so it's been like things like that where I'm like, sometimes, buy less, buy quality. A great book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, has really helped me by this.
Elimination of Hurry
by John Mark Comer.
Okay.
Really helped me with this. And it's like, I've done things now, like I only have like 20 coat hangers in my closet. And so minimal.
Yeah.
But it's not that I'm not into the minimalist lifestyle. Like that to me becomes an idol. Like, people get obsessed. Like, how less can I have?
Minimalist.
I'm a minimalist. Yeah. But what that's forcing me to do, and I play with it. Like I'll, there's probably some things on other hangers in my house, but it's what I'm trying to do is buy less, but buy better. So it's like, what is quality,
Well, that sweatshirt you gave me was quality.
Yeah. Well, 100%. No, we're
really
putting out a
nice
sweatshirt for AOD. Like, we haven't released it online, but it was like, we had this conversation. It's like, we could have bought one made in another country that was thin and cheap. And I was like,
that doesn't represent you though.
No, it doesn't. This, just to make that hoodie in Canada, it just for the blank was like $70.
Right.
And so we were like, and then the stitching on it is like, rather than just getting a logo, it's like we did stitching, and but I know it's like, if I'm giving this to people I appreciate, like yourself, it's like, it's not gonna feel like fast fashion.
Yeah.
Like, I will hope, maybe not, but you're gonna want to hold on to that for a while because it's heavy, it's warm, and it's like, so yeah.
I think that's a testament to of just like the way I look at things too, whether it's this podcast and how I am striving to make it, look and feel. Same with my YouTube and my DP work. They all have to be in conjunction with one another in terms of a certain standard. Yeah. I think everything for me has to be of a certain quality.
It does. It's a reflection.
It is also a reflection of me.
It is when you're an artist, and it doesn't. There's nothing more agitating than when something misrepresents you. Yeah, and so that area of my business, because we're in the midst of all this right now, and so I can't say much, but I want to really improve that area, because I'm like, luckily it's not a product that people are purchasing. Like, I obsess over that. Like, did a 12-hour day yesterday just recording new content. Had some feedback from our community. They're like, we'd like some more pro videos about this topic, and I was like, great. If one person's emailed about that, there's probably 10 other thinking about that. So spent the day with an incredible DP, Nick Pilecki.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast as well.
Yeah, Nick's he was great. Mentioning that actually.
Nick's great.
Nick is awesome, man. Yeah. He broke down all of these cinematography setups, and there's a person who loves quality and like came so prepared. Just did these PDFs showing every light and not just where the lights were, wrote a little thing about each light and what purpose it was serving. And I'm so grateful for that, because he really, really did care.
He's very passionate, very technical. When I spoke to him, I got inspired.
Yes.
Like, he's truly
He's an incredible communicator.
Yeah,
incredible communicator. He will, if he ever can't work on set, he will be one of the best teachers in the world. Yeah.
Do you have a significant other?
I do not. No. Do not. Yeah. Single right now. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think that you're maybe preparing yourself for like relationship or fatherhood now?
Yeah. How am I?
Yeah.
I go down to North Carolina
Oh wait, I saw you have like nephews and
Yeah,
nieces,
I
right?
go to North Carolina and
Yeah.
Calgary often. My brother's in Calgary, has two amazing kids, Leanna and Jono. Love them. Going out there, I'll see them at Christmas. I'm going to go snowboard with them. My sister has 6 kids
Oh my
down there.
gosh.
So I try to go down there, and to prepare, I try to take on some responsibility. Although they always try to make it a vacation for me, which they absolutely do. But I know the joy of responsibility in that context. I knew that there's been 2 moments, and I have to thank my siblings for that. One time, my sister and her husband went out for dinner, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to, can you put the kids down?" And I remember just like doing bath time with them. And one of them was so young, I had to kind of keep my hand to make sure they didn't fall down. And I was like, if I'm not here, they die.
Right.
And but that idea of of another human being's like existence relying on you, I was like, whoa, there's something in there, and that's fulfilling. And I was like, okay, I think fatherhood is somewhere deep down in my soul. This was like years ago when she just had 3. Then my brother, his kids, it was Halloween, and I was walking them around the neighborhood, and I just remember looking down at their 2 little tiny hands in my hands. And you can't explain it. I just remember being like, I want the opportunity to participate in this part of the lived experience as humans. Just all that to say, I think I want to be a dad one day. Yeah. But I've had to also like put that desire not on a shelf, but understand, like, I just spent a week at a cabin just reading and praying, and I felt like, when I was going through that, like one of the ideas that I felt like, inspired from God was just like, what if it's 6 years from now? And I was like, okay, am I setting up my life right now so that like I feel like, because if I think kids will fulfill me, I'm putting pressure on them. That's not fair.
Right.
That's not fair to them. I'm saying like, you guys need to fulfill this need. I need to feel like a provider, or that this is some sort of check in my life. I've been a director. I've bought a house. You did this. Next thing is kids. Like, thanks, kids.
Yeah, you're
like,
just another check.
Yeah,
box.
another check.
Yeah.
And so it was that, having that idea resonate and write that down. I was like, I need to be okay. Maybe this never happens. I hope it does, but I can't put a timeline on it, and I don't want to have to wrestle with that all the time, in the sense that I feel like these people will fulfill that need, because that's not fair if you just look at someone as fulfilling an emotional gap you have. Yeah. So to prepare, I'm just spending lots of times around kids, but I'm also doing things like, genuinely, like, who cares about lifespan? Health span's important. I've been reading a great book around that by, I think, Peter Attia. I think it's Peter Attia.
Health is huge for me too.
Yeah.
Working out, even mental health.
Yes.
For me, the biggest thing that I've always promoted was stretching and yoga. Is like,
there's 2 things I need to do.
I
like run and weight lift.
Biggest thing I do too. I lift 5-6 days a week.
Yeah, you do. I love hugging Carlo. Like when I hugged you at Danny's screening, I was like, no, you hug me.
That was one thing actually that my dad got me into, as well as lifting. When I was 13, he had me start going to the gym.
Nice.
And it was like, it's been ingrained in me, and it's just like a part of me.
Yeah.
Regardless of what I'm doing, I'm always working out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But stretching and yoga, because operating a camera, especially the bigger ones, at the end of the day,
dude,
you're fried.
You're fried.
Your
lower back, man.
I think it was 20, maybe 3 years ago. My back was killing. I couldn't even straighten my back out.
Yeah.
And at 20, I'm like, this is not okay.
This is not good.
This is not good.
Yeah.
So I started practicing yoga consistently, hot yoga. I'm going tomorrow for another class.
And my nutritionist is always telling me, she's like, you got to run a little less and do a little more hot yoga. Like,
it'll change your life.
I know. I think I got
you,
it.
It'll
I
change
got
your
it.
life.
I got it. Everyone nodding.
Do you do sauna at all?
I do a little. I don't have one, but I'm building a house, and I'm going to put a sauna in the back.
Yeah, I can't recommend hot yoga enough. It transformed my life.
I love sauna. You say it like Matti, sauna.
How do I say sauna?
Sauna. I think that's how the Finnish say it.
Is that how that sauna?
Yeah, sauna. It's like as Canadian, we're like sauna.
Yeah, I say sauna.
Yeah, sauna. No, but they're like sauna or something. I do need to do that. My dad never had muscles, so he encouraged me to run, and so I got into running. And then, but the just a little bit of weightlifting is so, because like after you 30, from what I understand, like when your prefrontal cortex stops developing and all that, every year you lose like at least 1% of muscle mass unless you're working out. And so people see working out as this like frivolous or perhaps vain pursuit at times, because like I think there's just a lot of vain
Right.
athletes on on social media, but the practicality of it is actually really, really, really like beneficial. So that's actually a big part of why I would work out too, is like when I go hang out with my siblings' kids and I'm like tossing them on the bed, it's like if I haven't been working out for a month or two, you're like, oh, my back's tired. And I'm like, no, I want to be the dad who in his like 40s and 50s has the stamina, can throw them above my head. Like my dad did this thing flipperoo with us growing up, you know, where you like flip us over his head on when he was laying on his back, and it's like, those are things you remember, man. Like, and so I want to have that. Like, yeah, I'm just more motivated in life when my pursuits have some altruism to them. And when I feel like my films are going to help people, or when like, but you can get caught up with that where then you're seeking purpose in everything. And then you can start to, the issue with that is it can become toxic then when you're like, is talking to this person helpful for the things I'm, you know, like you start just ranking everything with like its benefits to your goals. And that is, I suppose, purpose, but there's also just important part of life is like being bored.
Right.
Part of life is having like random conversations that you don't know where they're going to go. You know, part of life is just like, I'm realizing like, you know, I perhaps should garden or something. Like I should have some
funny story. I was a landscaper before film. So you did construction. I did landscaping.
Yeah.
I love gardening.
Do you?
I love planting flowers.
Help me get passionate about it.
It's almost like a meditative thing.
Do you like the dirt, like the earth under your nails?
I'm not like that. Like I touch the dirt and I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels good. Yeah, I'm not that person.
I would just want to wash my hands right away.
There's a satisfying feeling. Like we just got a new house and the landscaping in the front and the back is non-existent.
Okay.
When we
it's a blank page.
It's exactly. When we moved into the house, I was like, I can't wait to design it this spring. Like there's something artistic, but there's also something very satisfying about seeing a yard that has potential that I see in my brain.
Oh, that scares me.
It's almost like,
that scares me.
I'm not going to connect it to DPing, but like you have, you see what the lighting's going to look like in your head. You see the composition. Then when it happens in real life, you're like, amazing. Like, it happened. Yeah. And I feel that it's also just a time for me to kind of be by myself. Yeah. Sometimes I'll have headphones and listen to a podcast, or I listen to a lot of classical music when I landscape, or nothing. It's just me for a couple hours doing my thing. And it's a laborious job. It's not, it's not easy. Yeah. But I did it for work for a year and a half. And I did not like it.
But what did it teach you?
It taught me that I don't have to pay for a landscaper anymore. It taught me that I could do it. But also, it also taught me the importance of hard work. Yeah. And that...
it did give you like the page, like, is there any growth? Patience. Like, I guess you're not like farming, but landscaping, I feel like everything comes like pre-grown, but I suppose you get to see a shrub grow. Or
you
get
like, to see that, but you also, depending on your stage of where you want to landscape, like my house has really nothing. So that's where the growth happened.
Some bulbs in?
Some like bulbs.
Bulbs is like, isn't that like tulip bulbs?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. In my head, I was like,
you're a DP. You're like, what kind of bulb? Is it tungsten or daylight? Yeah. Or is it RGB? No, like a tulip bulb.
Like a tungsten. Yeah.
Maybe you should plant like an aperture bulb and just see what happens. You know, maybe it'll grow like some nice softbox or something. Like that's how softboxes are made. People plant light bulbs.
Filmmaker jokes, right? Love it. No, but it's just the empty canvas, and then seeing the potential of what it could be is nice. And we don't have a great lawn. And then as soon as we moved in, I hired a landscaper to reseed the entire lawn and prepare it for the winter. Yeah, because I love a good property.
You love a good lawn. Yeah.
I love a good lawn.
You love a good. See. I'm right now with me. I'm like high efficiency, and so I have a lawn that's like twice the size. I have a big backyard, but it's just like all pine cones right now. So I'm like, I don't have to worry about the grass, but my front lawn is like twice the size of this table. And there's like, every day I pull up to it, I'm like, it should just be concrete. I'm like, then I can park a second car.
Then you don't have to do anything.
Then I have to do it. Yeah. But I do appreciate the aesthetic. But that right now I'm like, that's where I'm like, I would like to kind of, I know I'm in a season of building Art of Documentary, which is like, definitely, I haven't felt like it's given me much space to be bored. I think being bored is like actually where some of my best ideas have come from, just being able to think. Like the pandemic did that for us, like where there was a little bit of a lull. And so that's when the idea, I was like, maybe I start a course, and then and so that's, I think boredom is good. But so when you try to make your life so hyper efficient, I think you can sometimes squeeze out like
it's almost like imagination.
Yeah,
like
imagination.
A little bit of yourself.
Life is turbulent. Right. Like turbulence is all around us. We went through it in the airplane. Like that is a natural law of our physics, and scientists still don't understand turbulence. And so if you're trying to like it's one of these rare things. Like they understand quantum mechanics, they have mathematical equations, but they still don't have actual like definitive equations for turbulence. Like even right now in this room, like the way the air is moving around is turbulent. So I've been reading about this, been thinking about it in terms of life, and I'm like, well, I can't control every element. If I'm trying to have everything down to a T in my life, where that so that there's no like, maybe perhaps even that idea like I want my front lawn gone is that I'm like I have control, like it's not growing. But life is turbulent, so I think the question is like, how do you deal with the turbulence? Not like it is important to look like maybe we should avoid this route. It's pretty turbulent, but things will just happen. Things will come up. Like life is organic. Like we have free will, so it's kind of like more so like how do I deal with the bumps rather than always focusing on like can I avoid them? Because if you're trying to just avoid them, that's a pursuit that has no end, because they're always everyone else is living life. You're going to bump into people.
Right. And this is something I don't think I really talked about on the podcast. I don't think I've had an opportunity to ask somebody. It's something I talk to my dad about a lot too. And I actually talk to James about it pretty often as well.
Yeah. If it's about like reseeding a lawn or fertilizer or something.
Man, you stole it right out of my...
I can't. No.
Is how your faith has shaped you as a person.
Yeah.
And how you've navigated that.
I'd love to talk about this.
I'm not a born again Christian, but I had a relationship with the church growing up that wasn't great. My parents didn't go. I only went because it was like, oh, we have to go on a Sunday.
Of course.
Once my dad found it and he started, sharing things with me, and I started finding music, like Christian music.
Yeah.
That I think really changed my life.
Which Christian music?
Elevation, Maverick City.
Yeah.
I actually go to Elevation whenever I go to visit my dad. He lives in North Carolina.
Okay, that's where I've gone down there as well. It. Yeah. My sister used to live in Matthews, where one of their first campuses was.
My dad was right next to Matthews. What is it? I don't know. I forget.
She lives near to Lake Norman. Up there now. Yeah.
But I think I struggle with, maybe it's fully committing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I really navigate that.
I mean, I would love to circle back on, well, is the commitment, and this is like, I understand perhaps maybe you want to empathize. I understand where people are afraid to like talk about their faith or own it, because there's so much poor representation of faith and of Christianity. For me, I've enjoyed getting to be perhaps not antithesis, but like different version of that. Like I guess for me, God is so consistent in my life, and that is my pursuit of a relationship with Him. It's like God's not an idea; God is a person, and so I've had to commit to that idea, and I've seen it in my life show up. That like, there is a creator of this universe that knows me, that put my soul into a body at this time and space, and so that idea has become reality for me, and that's how I live by it. And let's say I'm wrong at the end of the day, which I don't believe I am, but let's say I am. The things I've been taught by that faith and by the life of Jesus is to love others like myself, is to love the Lord God with all my heart, soul, strength, and mind. And I know the care and insight that I feel God has given me in my life, that I'm okay committing my life to that. Now, I'm not okay committing my life to all the ideas that the church has brought in or that other Christians have. But to come back to that idea of turbulence, like life is organic, everyone has free will. So to expect, Christianity is the biggest religion in the world in terms of like people who would identify as some denomination. So to expect all of them to be living a life that's commendable, it's like, no, I mean, it's why we have jails. It's like people make mistakes, right? And there's going to be Christians, there's going to be people of other religions who make terrible mistakes. But that's, I've grown up in the church and seen pastors make mistakes, and I've had some friends be like, how are you still like a Christian? And it's like, because I'm not serving them. Like I'm not here, like I'm here to like want my life to benefit other humans. But ultimately, like I don't put my faith in humans. So they're going to disappoint me. They really, really are. Now that gives me wisdom on who I would want to bring into my life as a leader when I see these patterns. But ultimately, it brings me closer to God in a way, because God's never disappointed me. There's been times where I've looked at God and been like, kind of like, what the hell, bro?
Yeah.
Like what's going on here in my life? There's been dark night of the soul in my life in certain cases, but coming back to that root. So I guess for you, where's the fear? Like what you see when you say, what does committing look like to you?
I don't even know actually. Like I feel like it. I feel like a lack of commitment because it's something that I believe. It's something
Hmm.
that I want to believe more,
Yeah.
but I struggle with every day thinking about first, if that makes sense. Or
Thinking
like,
about it first.
or not even thinking about it when I wake up immediately, but like
Mm.
that is where my thoughts should go. Like
Yeah.
I, I don't even know how to like articulate it other than like say something great happens. I want my first instinct to be like, thank you, God, for that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, oh, this is because I did something.
Mm.
Like, how do I'm trying to figure out how to balance that because I think it is a balance of like, thank you, God, but also thank you for allowing me for that hard work, like
For
to do
sure.
that.
For sure.
And again, though, I don't know what the commitment looks like, but I feel like I don't have it yet.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even know how to articulate it.
Yeah. I think our generation has lost ritual in terms of religion, and I think I grew up thinking ritual was really bad. That felt like religious, like it felt like, oh, you shouldn't have to do the same thing all the time. But you have a ritual. You go to the gym 5 days a week. Your rituals, the things you do often, is what you love. Like there's a great book, "You Are What You Love," I believe. It's called. I just read it. And it's like the things you do consistently, they actually do say what you love and prioritize. And so it takes discipline to create that ritual. We've looked at people who've, have like a daily prayer, or like, you look at monks who, like some of them, the monastic monks back in 500 AD would pray 8 times a day. And we can look at that and be like, oh, it's obsessive. And perhaps I think that can become an idol. But what they were telling their world, their personal world, it was that like, this matters. I believe in this. And so God is only an idea until you do treat him like a person. And it just, you have to fight it. I think the biggest thing that goes against us is distraction. Like this is the distraction. And so I'm reading a great book by Peter Scazzaro, and I highly recommend it. He has a couple of them. There's Emotional Health, which I just left that book on a plane. So if anyone's listening to this, yeah, you'll see all my highlights. But then I have another one here, like Emotional Spiritual Health, I believe. It's a 40-day journal. But anyways, the journal is awesome, or it's a devotional, because he talks about your daily office, and that comes from the Latin. I'm so bad with remembering the things, but it means to like daily commit to this. And so I'm realizing my life, like I do it in the morning, and it's like I try to fill up my soul and spirit in the morning, but I also need to incorporate that in the middle of the day. And it's like, because otherwise my whole day is committed to these other things.
Right.
And then it's like, then this was just kind of like eating breakfast. You know what I mean? It's like, I think all that to say is, if there isn't some sort of consistent ritual, and you have to be careful, because then it can become just, I'm doing this activity now.
Right. That's like my fear sometimes is like growing up, oh, we're going to church on Sunday because
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be that type
No.
of mentality. So yeah, I think it is important because I do read, I do have like a morning
Yeah.
thing, but for a while I did have that incorporated. I did pray in the morning. I did have the Bible in the morning, and then it just like drifted out
Yeah.
a little bit. And
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. I feel like I let myself down or to come back to it.
Yeah, we have this idea that we have to be at some sort of spiritual
Right.
level to approach God, and that can be that's a lie. Like he accepted us before we were, if you believe in the idea that he gave his son for us before that, it was like before any of this was set into motion, we were accepted. So we're pre-accepted. That's there. And not trying to get into the theology of that, but you can approach God with that, knowing that it doesn't matter what you did that week, doesn't matter what you said, doesn't matter where your mind's at. But I think where it becomes just religious ritual and it is stagnant is when we don't give space for God to speak. That's like, because then it becomes, we were talking about, like, you don't actually know someone if I'm always talking to you, talking at you, I'm saying, giving you the list of, like, sometimes our prayer, we would say in the Bible, like, or sorry, in church, we'd be like, who has prayer requests? It's like, just, that's all we had. But I think that's what Peter Scazzaro is always going on and about is having space to listen. And I think people get nervous about that because it's like, are you writing down "Thus saith the Lord"? But I come back to him, like, if God's a person, like, he absolutely would want to provide new thoughts, like inspire me or give me peace about certain things. Like the Bible talks about, like peace be your guide, like Jesus, the Prince of Peace. And so I think that perhaps is where it can become real, and then it becomes someone you desire to be around.
Right,
and then
right.
that's where you can kind of push away the religious repetition and just it's not an idea, it's a person. And I think that's where for a lot of people, they're like, how can you believe this? Because they think you're just believing a system, like a political system. But it's like, I can't ever, I haven't been able to shake this because I feel like I know a person, I know a God that loves me. And so
Did you grow up Christian?
I did. Like my dad didn't grow up in the church. My mom was a pastor's kid. But I grew up as a pastor's kid in that way. But I always appreciated my parents gave me the space to kind of wrestle through that and find that. And I think doubt's so important. Like the last thing Jesus said on the cross was like, Father, why did you forsake me? Like he was doubting, himself. And so I think it's like, if you have doubts in your faith, that's healthy, that's normal. I'm not Catholic, but I appreciate that. I feel like the Catholics really wrestle through with doubt. I was Pentecostal, and like we had to like know everything and be really certain, like it was all about faith. Yeah. But I think my parents somehow were able to kind of create space for me to have those doubts and question because because then it becomes your own,
Exactly.
like if you only believe because you're supposed to, then you don't know why. And so I don't think why is a great question, but I think asking God, what's the lie I'm believing is a great question to start. But yeah, it's all a practice. You start knowing like people's voices, if you and I were good friends, or I could call you up, you've watched enough of my YouTube, you know my voice. Exactly. It's like you start learning what's God's voice and what's just your fear and what's your emotion. But then you also have people around you who are also friends with God who you can dialogue. That's where like community comes in and there's safety.
I've found more and more people that I have learned like that are Christian. Like James is, him and I's relationship has grown over like the past 3-4 years. And we talk about this all the time. And he plays keys at the church. And he has helped me also along because I've had questions since I like first met him.
Yeah.
And it's surrounding myself with people and just trying to ask questions and try to understand a little bit more. But I've noticed more people, it's just like, it's like an attraction thing. Like, are a Christian, then I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were like that, that type of thing.
I think we're so, because unfortunately Christianity has been associated with judgmental people, and rightfully so. We've often been quite judgmental. So I think people are often really afraid to open up about. I don't know. I just know in the context of Toronto, it's a city that like often I'll meet people and they're like, oh, you're my only friend who's like calls himself a Christian, and so I fully understand that, and I fully like own the fact that is something that we've been associated with, and I would love to not be that person. Right. To me, it's so fun because it's not fun, but maybe it is, but I get to hopefully redeem that idea of just judgment, because if we're always going to be held to account of how we've treated others. So if I'm walking around judging others, it's like, that's going to come right back on me, And so I don't want to live that life of that's just not how you want to lead. But yeah, you start finding out that actually a lot of people are seeking and a lot of people are pursuing, and some people more quietly finding that. And what's so fun about it though is like when you have been connecting with God and you meet others who have too, it's like you get to talk about him and you get to bring that into your lives. And I'm so grateful that so much of my team in Art of Documentary, they share their faith, and we don't call ourselves a Christian organization. I don't want people to feel like they can't be part of AOD. We certainly that's not part of the curriculum, but it's who we are. So I'm not gonna hide that.
Exactly.
That would be disingenuous.
Right.
Disingenuous. But we just recorded yesterday some videos for nonprofits and churches to try to help equip them, because we know a lot of people run big organizations with volunteers. So it's excited to kind of put some of that content out there and help them, because that's where I met some of my team members in AOD. We used to run like volunteer stuff at church and everything. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think we're, how long are we? Okay. Probably going to wrap this up soon.
Yeah, no problem.
I have one last question that I usually ask everyone. Well, first off, thanks for sharing.
Of course.
This is the first time I really talked about it.
That's great. Me too. There've been a few podcasts, but no, this was, I enjoy talking about that. Yeah. A lot of great first questions. No, I'm so glad. I was like, are we going to just talk cinematography and then, talking life?
Yeah. Last one would be, like this table here, you're sitting across from me, but this person instead of me is that younger person of you that went to Egypt before film school.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give that younger version of you where you are today?
Yeah. No, I want to get away from the trite things. It's always like, enjoy the journey, right. Or just be patient. And I would be like, invest in Apple Store. No, it's
It's not a bad advice.
yeah, some great pieces of advice. I want to actually, I have to really think about that young Mark. What was he wrestling through with enough? I think, I've said this, but I think it would to come back around to that is you don't have to wait. Like I was gifted from that moment where my dad was like, I think you're a filmmaker. And I think I kind of got used to my parents taught a thing called the family blessing. And they would always there's different stages of your life where you should verbally affirm the people in your family unit or your friends and call out the next stage of their life. Like you're going to be this, identify with that next pursuit. And I think I probably perhaps the blessing of having that in my life is I was used to that, but then that also can be a curse because then I was waiting for people to say you're allowed to make a documentary now. I think in terms of that, I would have kind of owned that. I wrote down in my journal, I'm a documentary filmmaker. So why wait for someone to give me that permission? And I think that was what I wish I would have learned earlier. I'm glad I learned it by the time I was 27. Some people maybe perhaps never learn that. They're always waiting for other people to give the opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think trying to distill that into one sentence is you don't have to wait for the title to start acting in the role. Yeah, that's what I would have told Mark, and he would have been like, "What do you mean?" He
would have got it though. Yeah, a little bit. Maybe it planted a seed.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And I also would have said, another thing I would have told him is I would have said, your lies are limiting your truth. And I think I'm just thinking of really something small. I did some half marathons when I was a teenager and I just didn't do enough weight training. So I was getting injuries around my knees. And so then I just believed that I had these knee injuries. I was like, I can't run anymore. But then, kind of went through some physiotherapy and slowly then did some triathlons, which was less intense on the knees. It was just swimming, and slowly realized again, I was like, oh, I can run. Now I'm 36. I'm running way, Eric Floberg's amazing. He was pushing me to run 60K a week and running way more than I'd ever done. And my knees feel completely fine. Mm. And I'm just it blows my mind, how much I can run right now with the right training, the right knowledge, and wisdom is so important. But I had believed this lie back. I remember telling someone at a party when I was 21, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to run again. It was so dramatic, but it's because I was currently focusing on the situation and not realizing that with a little bit of wisdom and not just believing this lie, I'm
pushing past your limited beliefs of yourself.
Yeah, there you go. And so I would have wanted to tell Mark that because it's I missed this whole time. I was still running through my 20s, but I was always really cautious. I wouldn't go past 8K or whatever. And it's now that's just a warm up, know? And so and I'm wow, what other, so seeing this running
what other parts of your life.
Yeah. I've just hit my personal bests and all my times, the 5K, amazing. 10K and all at this age, I'm exactly. I'm whoa, what other areas am I denying myself with? And it's I'm what other things, I'm a business owner or running a company. I've even got a business coach because I've been afraid that I'm not a good leader. Mm. But I'm maybe I need to actually start owning that role and not just keep waiting for someone to. I got the business coach hoping he would just say, "You're a good leader." And he said that a few times, but it's it's I actually need to do the thing, do the work, find the wisdom, amazing. And that'll open the doors. And so, yeah, you limit yourself to your own beliefs.
Amazing.
A lie believed is as powerful as the truth. Mm. So that's why I'm saying when you want to go pray to God, don't ask him what to do. Ask him, what lies am I believing? Mm. He knows you. He knows your soul more than anyone. He created you. So he might have good insights to that. And you can trust that idea that just pops into the mind. Write it down, then test it. You don't have to just go if you hear I'm a policeman, don't run outside and start trying to arrest people, bring it to some people with wisdom. But I think journaling is so important. So again, I left my journal on the airplane. So that person out there who has my
I think we keep looking at James, but
James,
the cameras
I know. I keep looking over at James. I'm James, yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, man.
Where can people find you, your website?
Yeah. If you're interested in storytelling or joining an incredible community of filmmakers from around the world. You know, we have almost 6,000 filmmakers in AOD now. You can go to theartofdocumentary.com or check us out on Instagram, or you can see me on YouTube, just Mark Bone, Markbone. Not to be mistaken with the rapper from St. Louis named Mark Bone.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was my goal when I started my channel. I was like, I just want to get my search engine optimization over him, and I think I've leapfrogged him.
I think so.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming
Carlo.
on. I
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hopefully you have a great day. Peace out. So that's a wrap on today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation with our guest. And as I mentioned in the intro, if you enjoy the podcast, you enjoyed today's episode, leave a rating on whatever podcast platform you're using, share it with a friend, share and tag us on Instagram @CreativeGap. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to leave you with some nice calming music to wrap up today's episode. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next time. Peace out.